Hello. So this is the first time I actually thought to start a video series on this, but as you can see here, I have Golden Tee 3D Golf. It's the Arcade 1-Up XL machine. I've already done a couple mods to it, so this does have the BOE monitor swapped in. I did that myself, and then I also did the Retro 530 light up coin door mod. And I love this machine, right? Like, I got this right after I moved into this apartment, so a little bit over 2 years ago. I love playing it all the time. You know, when people come over and visit, they usually don't tend to want to play golf. They usually want to play the bowling or the shuffleboard, and hey, that's fine. It's still a very fun multiplayer experience. I also have NBA Jam Arcade 1-Up XL Shack Edition. And when I bought that one, it was a couple months after I bought Golden Tee. And that's a 4-player cabinet. I thought that this thing was gonna be such a huge hit. Everybody was gonna wanna play it all the time, and I was gonna wanna play it all the time. I mean, I love NBA Jam Tournament Edition. I love NBA Hang Time. I just find that I never play it though, right? I just never actually get myself to play it. And it's a real shame because that one was a lot more expensive. I got the Golden Tee 3D on clearance, and the NBA Jam Shack I paid full price for, and then just outside of the return window, it went on sale for like $300 off. So I was kind of angry about it for a long time. It's 2 years later now, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna find a way to make this more accessible to me and to everyone who comes over to visit, and make it something I want to take on the road with me, and overall just make it a more fun cabinet, right? Like, it's got a big, beautiful marquee on it. I did do the BOE monitor swap on there, and you know, the artwork, if you're a purist about it, it is what it is, but overall it's a great cabinet, right? So I decided I'm going to put an actual Model 2 Sega Genesis in there. But the interesting thing about the Sega Genesis is most people's experience with the Genesis is always a 2-player experience, right? And this Arcade 1-Up has 4 sets of controls. And there is a decent amount of 4-player Genesis games, but you need something called the Sega Team Player. And I never had one of those growing up. In fact, I never had one until extremely recently. But there is a way to play Sega Genesis games 4-player. The problem with that is, though, if you were to just hook up the Sega Genesis controls 1 through 4 right here, and you're playing 4-player games, that would be totally fine, right? That would work great, and it would be so fun. The problem becomes when you want to switch it to 2-player mode. Now, short of opening up the whole thing and rearranging the controller plugs, the default mode for 2-player on the multi-tap, the team player, puts controller slots 1 and 2 as the primary players. So you and your friend would both be bunched up on this side, you know, playing like this, which is not going to be the best 2-player experience. And since so many Genesis games are 2-player, the majority of them, 2-player Genesis games, I had to come up with a solution how I am going to accomplish a reasonable 2-player and 4-player mode through hardware, right? So this is not going to use any emulation. This is not going to use any microcontrollers or programming. It's all going to be done through original hardware and actual hardware devices. So come with me on this journey, and I will show you exactly how I'm going to do it. You can also see here I did already take all the old controls out. I didn't think to start making videos about this till today. I've already been conceptualizing and working on this project for about 3 or 4 weeks already, but yes, I have gutted this part of it already. The buttons, everything has been taken out. For the first revision of this, at least, I'm just going to reuse this original control deck. We're going to keep the same joysticks. We ordered new buttons for A, B, and C, and then the start buttons for each player are going to be up here. And this is actually going to get cut out to make the cartridge slot. And then there's one button left right here, which on the Arcade 1-Up is the internet functionality button, the live button, right? And so I could have just, you know, put some switches on the side or on the back or something, but right here, front and center, we're gonna have a 2-player, 4-player toggle switch. So it's gonna be a latching push button switch right here. And this will visually and hardware wise switch this from a 4-player to a 2-player experience. So player 1 will be right here, player 2 will be right here. All right, so the way that we are going to solve that design problem is through the use of relays. So you can buy these on Amazon or from any electronic supplier. So the way that a relay works is there's 3 terminals per switch or per channel. This is an 8-channel relay, so there's 8 switches. When a voltage is applied, and you can set these up with a microcontroller to send a signal to toggle the switch between normally open and normally closed. So everything is either A or B at all times. Now this one has 8 isolated switches. I'm going to be using it to switch 8 different things, but all at the same time. So they're all either on or off. The way that this works for the control scheme is I built a bunch of these different controller modules. This one just has one connection on it. This will be used for positions 1 through 4. And I have some down here. This one's already wired up and everything, so this one has 2 of these on it. So this will be used in controller slot 1 to change whether it is hooked up to position 1 or position 2 on the control deck. This is a Genesis controller board right here. I've just sliced the ends off it and connected traces from each button to individual channels on the relay, which then when it is unpowered will be going through this side. This is the normally closed 10-pin connector, and on this side is the normally open 10-pin connector. So you apply the 5 volts, it automatically switches all these to this connector, which then would be switched or connected to control deck's position 2. So 2 of them will look like this. They'll have just 1 port on it, and 2 of them are like that where they have 2 ports. Those will all be controlled by this 4-channel relay. So on this side, this is a switch that's going to toggle between the 2-player and 4-player modes on the actual team player. This one will just be to control some LEDs, and these 2 are both actually going to carry the same thing, just 5 volts, either connected or not connected. And when this one is powered on, which will be through that push button latching switch, this will send 5 volts to the other 4 relays, and then this will actually turn off a couple of LEDs that are above positions 1 and 4. This will actually represent the switch on the actual team player to switch it to the 2-player mode. And so these enclosures right here, these are something I designed myself. I did buy a 3D printer and teach myself some very basic CAD just for this project. But this is designed to hold the relay, and this one is a 1 connector version, so it holds the 10-pin connector firmly right there, and it does leave a nice custom fit space for the Genesis control board after it's been sliced, and the actual cable going through here. So I kind of designed this keeping in mind that this might need to be serviced at some point. So all these are modular, and they're open top, so they can be worked on very easily without disassembling the whole thing. And nothing on here is necessarily permanent either. It does use a system of pegs and caps to hold everything in place. So they do fit quite tightly, but you can just click these on there. You can hear it click, and that will hold the board steady so it's not flopping around or anything. So what I'm going to be demonstrating for you today is how to actually slice the Genesis controllers for what we need. So there is a couple different models there's a couple different revisions of the motherboard, even if you buy controllers that all look the same essentially. So these are the white letter ones, the white everything. Some of them are red. I'll show you a couple of those too. So this one has the red letters and the red arrows. I opened up one of these and I decided that the motherboard layout was not very useful for what I'm trying to do here, and I actually didn't really know that there was so many revisions until I started this project. So what we're gonna do right now is just crack one of these open, and we'll see if it's a familiar layout or if it's something entirely different. All right, so we're gonna keep this cord intact actually, but we are going to open up the 6 screws on the back here, and I might need a smaller screwdriver to do that. So let's grab this guy, maybe this will work. There we go. These screws have been in here since, I would guess, you know, over 30 years ago. A lot of these were built in, you know, 91, 92, 93. So we'll just take all these screws out and we'll take a look at it. We're gonna open this face down, just so the buttons don't go flying everywhere. So this piece right here, the back piece, we don't need that anymore. We'll just set it off to the side and then we will gently lift this out. It's just sitting on some pegs here. And, all right. So this one is pretty familiar to me. It does look like one of the ones I've already opened up. So I'm gonna actually put this in these alligator clips for right now. And just hold it kind of right there. To this guy. This one right here, it has the 4 that bend up around on top, and then 2 right here, there, and then 2 down here, right there. So this is the first one I ever cut. It's a little sloppy, but I am confident that this will fit in here. So let's go ahead and slice it up. All right, so we're just gonna be using the rotary tool here. I just have a little metal cutting disc on there. I just wanna make sure it's nice and tight before I start cutting anything. And usually I'll just draw a line on there with a Sharpie too. I don't really feel the need to do that this time since I've done this one before. But basically what I'm aiming for, ideally, is I want to have these fat parts of the trace still intact, because the thin parts you can solder to, which is pretty difficult. So I'm gonna probably go just to the right of the word Sega there, something like that, and then probably a little bit in on this one, kind of where that hyphen is. Let's see if that's ready to go. Nope. Okay, so probably what I would do next, just gonna give this a little bit more on the edge here. And a little how do you do? Cool. So not a crazy straight line, but it's good enough for me to look at the back now, and I can see right here where I had already cut and approximately make a score on the back the exact same way. Now that we've scored both sides of it, see how the flex is. It's still a little thick, so I might go hit it a little bit more. All right, there we go. Just like that, snaps right off. And you just kind of dust this off a little bit, and you can see right about here and here we have the 4 fat sections still. So those will scrape off the surface here and we'll solder directly to that. Now I'm going to do the other side, something like that. A little bit farther maybe. You don't want to press into it too hard. Just kind of let the tool do the work. It's low torque, but it's high speed, right? There we go. Snaps just like that. And clean this up just a little bit. All right, so you can see on this side, we have 4 fat traces, and here we have 4 fat traces, and actually one really long fat one too, because the way we cut this one. So I think I did a little bit better that time. Also, this will create a grounding issue, so the ground pin is right here. We're going to need to jump a wire from here to this side of the board in order for that ground to actually reach the IC on the board. So we will have to run a wire eventually, but I will just show you real quick. I'm going to use this empty shell for now. The way that this fits in here, I like to do this part first. This hole is perfectly sized to take the square portion of the, I don't know what you'd call that, the controller cord end. And you can just kind of click it into place with these pins here. And there is a little bit of pressure on it because of the cords underneath, so I might, you know, take it out and rearrange things, but generally speaking, now that's a perfect fit. You put the relay here and you can solder right to those wires, or to those traces, so that's how we do it. For this next part, I'm just going to scratch those traces, and we're gonna install it with this relay module I already put together. So, I'm going to take a very small flathead screwdriver, and I'm left-handed, so this is probably going to block the view for some of this, but basically I just want to hit these fat sections, space them out as much as I can. These ones will make it a little easier on this side, since there's only 2 per lane here. But We're gonna scratch the coating off of this, and then until we get the bare trace, we're gonna apply a little bit of solder to that. Once we are all done with that, we will be able to attach those wires. So let's get this scratched up. Alright, so from what I've learned the last 2 times doing this, the wires, well, the new solder is not necessarily going to want to stick to this super well, but if you at least get some of the flux melted on there and then apply the solder to the ends of the wires, it works a little bit better. Also, you want to do everything you can to go the long way. The more surface area the wire has to stick to, you'll get a little bit better adhesion there. So I'm going to do the other side of this board now. This is the easier side. Cool. All right. We've exposed all 8 traces for the buttons. So that would be up, down, left, right, A, B, C, and start. We still have that grounding issue I talked about. So anywhere up in this area, probably somewhere not very congested. So somewhere like here, I'm just going to scratch off a little portion so we can hook a ground wire up to it. And this one's easy. I mean, you have so much area to work with. So just a little spot like that. And that should be good enough. So now we'll boot up the soldering iron, and I'm going to turn on a little bit of air filtration for this, so it might get a little loud. I apologize. All right, so we'll just pull out our solder here, and I'm going to do this ground wire last, I think. So for right now, we'll just apply a little bit of solder to it. And like I said, it might not really want to stick at all. That's normal. Sometimes it does. But overall, as long as you can get some of that flux on there, which is that shiny stuff, that's what's going to motivate the solder to stick later. So I have a little bit of melted solder on here already. I'm going to try to brush it across here, see what happens. It is not cooperating. Okay. And then this trace right here for the ground, I'm actually going to melt that just a little bit too. Just get some of that new solder on there. It'll help it stick a little bit better later. Okay, so we melted some there. Melt some new solder there. We get a little bit of it stick, cool. And these 4 right here. And you want to be very careful too not to solder them together. So that's not going to help us out at all. Scrape the excess off. Alright. Those are looking pretty good. I'm thinking we did pretty good there. We do have kind of a bailout with this one too, so if we get to the 3rd wire and it's feeling a little tight with that 4th one, we can scrape off this portion here too if we need to. So I'm going to turn this off for a second. Cool. And at this point, I like to put it in place on the actual module. And like I said, I like to stick this down first, so then I know exactly how it's going to sit. Because that is a tight fit. Does not leave much room for error. And these wires are kind of picky. Cool. Alright, so we've got that secured. I'm going to put a couple caps on it. If I can get it the right direction here. There we go. Should hold that in place pretty firmly. Yeah, that's a good click when you hear that. So this one's a little... I made several different heights of them, so I think I'm going to grab a shorter one. Oh yeah. You hear that? That's winning right there. And then, like I said, it does lift a little bit on this side. Not the end of the world. I probably could have left a little bit more space for those wires. Just raise these up, but it is what it is. It's already been done. So, my notes tell me the order of the wires on the controller board. On the left side, so it's left, then right, then down, then up. So my left wire in my scheme here is going to be this gray one. So I do have them kind of roughly plotted out to the correct sides here, with the way that they're wired underneath this relay. But what I like to do here is just kind of roughly measure how long it will take me to get to that exact spot, and you're going to need to leave some extra because it's going to bend, right? So I'll just measure it out, snip the wire, and strip the wire. And we're just going to do all 4 of these ones at the same time. Let's give it a little twist on the end here. Alright, cool. I'm just going to leave that wire like that for now, and we'll just move on to the next one. So my notes say the next one is right So we're gonna need the purple wire, which is already on this side somewhere. Yeah. All right, purple, let's go. So purple will be the second one. Something like that. Give this a little snip. And a little strip. Get rid of my old insulation there. And we don't want to strip very much off of this. I mean, these connections are going to be really tight together, so sometimes I'll even, you know, strip them and spin them and then tin them and then snip the exposed part of the wire even shorter, just to leave a little bit more room. So these two are both pretty short, and then this green one and the brown one are going to be even shorter than that. So we need down next, which is green. So something like right there. Not a whole lot shorter, but we still need to be able to work with it, and we're working with our hands here, so. Yeah, that's a nice short one right there. It's hard to twist too once they're already all in like this, but you get much better results if you twist them, I promise. So. And the last one, we need up, so brown. Cool, brown we got right here. Probably make this one just about the same length. So we'll give it a snip, and we'll get rid of the insulation there. Give it a strip, gently. This is all fastened down to the bottom of this relay, but if we did have to reattach any of these wires to the relay or to anything else, it would be kind of a real pain. So we're going to do everything we can to not have to do that. I like to just kind of bend these out of the way in case we drip any solder. I'm going to move this light a little bit for you too. Hopefully that helps. And we're just going to power this back up. It's going to be upside down, but yeah. We'll wait for it to get up to temp. So at this point, I'm just going to kind of bend the wires just a little bit out of the way. And we want to add this solder to each wire, and not a ton, right, but just enough so that when we heat it up again, that it's going to take. Ideally, this should not be very hard. It usually is pretty hard. So just melt a little bit onto each one. Get this green quick. All right, cool. And this point, I usually break out the tweezers, which I have somewhere. Yeah, there we go. So I like to go from top to bottom too. You could go either way. But the first one we need is left, so we need gray. So I'm gonna take this gray, and I'm actually gonna set the soldering iron down for a sec. The way that I'm gonna have to do this, I might be blocking the view a little bit, but we're gonna take this wire, position it right on top here, and then just hit it, hold it down with the iron, and hold it very firmly in place with the tweezers. So I'm just gonna bend this around like this. There you go, we are right on top. You want to make sure it's not touching the other connection. And just hit it. Blow on it a little bit. Hit it again. Yeah. Let that cool for a few seconds, and let's see if it took. Look at that. We melted a little bit of the wire too. That's okay as long as it's not exposed. That's just the cost of doing business, right? And last but not least, brown. So this one, again, since it's kind of not following anything else, we can angle it a little bit more. We still want to have a lot of surface area contacting, right? So we don't want to angle it too much. I've done that on some of the other ones. Does not go well. All right, I think all four of those took. So let's zoom up in on that. But all four of those are touching their proper traces, and I think they're gonna hold. For this side, we need B first, and B is yellow. So similar technique. We're just gonna get this as far over as we can first. So we'll need to bend it a little bit like this. And this one's pretty long, right? I could probably trim this one down a little bit. Might help. So I might do that quick. Just grab my little snippers here, and over something that's not conductive, just snip just, you know, a millimeter or less off the end, just to make it as short as we can. those 4 are now connected. The last thing we need to do is connect ground. So I have this one wire already. This is ground for everything else on the relay, so I'm going to trim this one pretty short, because we're only going to need to go to right here. So I'll take a couple inches off at least. So for this guy, I'm going to hold it right here and melt it on, and that one takes real easily because those already had, I put some new solder on it, but they were already solder. They're huge pins compared to these tiny traces, right? So that's no problem at all. And I'm just gonna find a little bit of black wire, such as this, and do the exact same thing from here to here. So I'm gonna do this side first, I think. Hopefully y'all can see all right. So that big area I scratched off there, the ball of solder took to that quite nicely, which is exactly what we want. So let's take the other end of this, and we'll have to be a little bit careful we're not touching any other pins. See, my first wire lifted up just a little bit here, so I might put some pressure on both sides of it. Melt that down one last time. Blow on it just a little bit and pull out the multimeter. All right, so quiet this down a little bit too. So the ground pin on the 10-pin connector that I'm using is all the way to the right, at least in this orientation, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put one of these leads right on that. Actually, you know, it might be, yeah, there we go. And then if I touch this, it should be, look at that, no resistance. So that means it is continuous from this pin all the way up to here. And both sides of this, because of that, are also continuous. So we got nothing to worry about with grounding issues. That was an old problem for us. So everything's testing well. The next test would be we actually take this and hook it up to a Genesis and make sure all of our inputs work properly. So we'll just see how it goes. All right, so I've got my trusty Model 1 Genesis here on the bedroom floor and the TV hooked up to it. And we have the 1-port relay module here. It's just got 5 volts going into it and a switch. So right now it is off. So this would be in 4-player mode. So imagine that this is the joystick controls for player 1. As you can see, everything I'm doing right now, you know, it responds. So we'll just enter into a game. Cool, cool. Yep, we'll skip this cutscene. All right, so I'm just gonna test all the directions here. Yep, up works, down works. Let's hit A, special attack, punch, and jump, and then of course start. So everything works on the test equipment. That means we made all our connections properly. And here's the kicker. So let's say we were in 4-player mode. We actually only need to be in 2-player mode. So we're gonna enable the relay. Now these buttons don't do anything. It disconnects everything, which is exactly what we wanted. So it is working properly. All right, just a small little update here. So what I've done, I didn't want to do this, but I did apply hot glue. Oh, there we go. Yeah, hot glue to all the wires that have those fragile connections. This is one of the 2-port relays. It's an internal component. I would rather it look a little less professional and have to be serviced less, so I just did it. The secret technique with this though is that you put the hot glue down first, you lick your finger, and then you just smush it right down with your wet finger, and it will kind of form around whatever you're sticking it to. I also went ahead and did that to these other guys here. So, yep, right there, hot glue. This is that one I just built. So it sucks, but I think it was the right thing to do.